Let's go through intros. Why don't we work our way down? We'll start with Avnish. Kick it off.
That's great. Hey, everybody. My name is Avnish. I work at Foursquare. We're a location intelligence company, really trying to understand how people move throughout the physical world. In particular, I focus on one of our 2 consumer apps. I run the team that builds Swarm.
Hi, my name is Trish Makita. I'm the Vice President of Digital Media Strategy at AccuWeather. Most of you probably know AccuWeather from our traditional media partnerships. At New York here, we've been partners with 1010 Wins and WABC since the 70s. We're a 56-year-old company, but we do have a digital audience, and we reach about 200 million monthly active users on our digital properties. Like I said, I'm the currently digital media strategy. I work with the marketing teams, then the product teams, and the biz dev teams to help point everyone in the right direction.
And I'm Mark Miner. I work for AMC Theaters, the world's largest movie theater exhibitor, and I manage our mobile app.
Hi everyone, I'm Mirella and I'm with Zinio. We are the first and one of the largest distributors of magazines in digital format. We were founded in 2001 in San Francisco, and to date we delivered over 500 million of magazine issues to customers from around the world through our online platforms and mobile applications. Some of our most popular titles include National Geographic, People, Time, GQ, Vogue, and over 6,000 other titles. I've been with Zinio for almost 8 years, and in my current role, I oversee customer acquisition, engagement, and retention for the North American market.
Hi everyone, Zoe Soon, General Manager of Apps and Email at Business Insider, recently rebranded to Insider Inc. to have like an umbrella against our lifestyle and our business content. 300 million users that we reach a month, and yeah.
Cool. Hey guys, I'm David. I work for Adjust.com, and as the only vendor on this panel, just a quick little bit about Adjust. We're a mobile measurement partner integrated with over 2,000 plus networks. I am currently the lead sales engineer at Adjust with a background in account management also at Adjust. So I've seen the entire kind of scope of the customer lifecycle in my roles.
Thank you. And I'm Andrew Bernbreyer. I'm Managing Director, General Manager for Aplift in North and South America. Aplift, we're a performance DSP, a few of us out here in the world. Our primary focus, though, is on engagement advertising. And something new that we've been pushing for a little while now is converting non-mobile users into mobile users. I can explain a bit more about that, but it's really interesting, and I'm quite excited about what we're able to do there. Okay, so my first softball question, which I'm curious of because a few people mentioned this. How many of you actually use your own app? Okay, when was the last time you used it?
What time is it?
Okay, good answer.
1 hour ago.
When I got to the hotel and I checked in here on
Checked
Swarm.
in?
Yeah,
Perfect,
yeah.
Nice. So you're also power users, perfect.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So, again, we don't have too much time, so let's work through this pretty quickly. The idea today is about how do we engage with our users, right? Whether it's re-engagement, whether it's bringing new users in that weren't normally mobile users, etc. So one topic that we came across in our conversations before this was app design, right? We've been talking a lot about marketing today, but this is something that really impacts engagement and retention. So Mirella and Trish both had some interesting experiences with it, but how do you approach redesigns and relaunches with the intent of retaining all these users that you've already built up? A lot of you have massive user base, right? 300 million users, millions and millions of users. We want to get new flashy apps, but that has impacts. The hope is we get more people, but it doesn't always work out that way. So, Mirella, from your experience, what was it like doing a redesign? What were some of the things you did that ultimately either helped or didn't help retention?
So we recently went through a major product update, which was basically a complete front-end and back-end redesign. This was basically paving the way for future enhancements, which were impossible to implement on the legacy platform. So we basically had to do it in order to be able to offer a better experience to our customers. This replatforming meant migrating all the data to new servers, so our power users lost all their downloads. So they basically had to re-download all the content they purchased and had on their devices for so many years. We tried as much as we could to alleviate customer discomfort by having a strong communication program. We had several email campaigns pre-migration and post-migration. We had on-site and in-app communication. After users would upgrade to the new app, we had a strong onboarding program with several cards that were explaining what are the new features, why we had to do what we've done. However, our power users, most of them were okay with the transition, but the ones that were not okay were very vocal on the public channels.
How much do you think retention dropped?
I'm sorry?
How much do you think engagement dropped or retention dropped because of that? Just ballpark it. We don't need to do calculus, right?
Can I share some NDAs here?
Just give us a ballpark. That's what we're all here for. It's a safe room, right? None of you guys are going to write this down.
Okay, so I would say anywhere between 10 and 20%.
Oof, that's substantive.
Power users,
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, they were extremely vocal on social channels
your power
and in the app
users
stores.
usually
Yeah,
they let you know. So you did a full revamp, but sometimes it's small tweaks that actually have the most impact. And I think a lot of us here are looking for home runs, right? But sometimes it's the most basic things that we overlook. Trish, you actually mentioned that just by shortening the app open time, you doubled retention.
Yeah, I think we were all shocked by it. We were looking at, some of our best users are ones that come in to check the weather multiple times a day. And we like that. We want you to come in and check whether, the rain is going to start and stop in the next 19 minutes. You should keep looking and validate that, and then it will start again in 30 minutes. And days like today and last evening, it was very helpful for that. So that open and close process needs to be very quick. It's not like you sit and load a game, and you're going to sit and play that game for 15 minutes or whatever. This is you're in and out very quickly, and so giving those users that first impression of that fast speed, it doubled our retention.
That's pretty incredible. It's those small things sometimes. Avnish, what's the one thing that you did in the redesign that you think had the most impact? One thing.
Yeah, so Foursquare's been around a long time. The company's been around since 2009. It was one of the earliest companies in the location space in general. And as time has evolved, people's use of location, people think about location very differently. And so as part of our redesign, we didn't just move things around the app. We didn't redesign screens just for the sake of it. We actually started to tell a brand new story through our product because we started to see users start to use the app for a very different reason than what they started to use it at in the very beginning of time. And so what we focused on was really building out and telling a story for long-term usage. We don't want a user to use us for a week or a month or 3 months. We want them to use our app for a year, 3 years, 5 years. And the more they use it, the better it will be, the more they'll get out of it. And so we really wanted to shape a new story for our product, and that ultimately is kind of keeping track of all the places that you go so that you can look back on a vacation, you can recommend a place to a friend, and our app wasn't really set up for that use case in the past, and that's kind of what the purpose and intent of the redesign was.
I think that worked out pretty well. I mean, now you guys are on your way up and up quite a bit. There was
Absolutely.
that time when it was dipping down, but now, and especially in Europe, y'all are it.
Going in a very
Y'all are the
different
ones.
direction now, yeah.
I have to say, just to interrupt, I use your app that way, and we found that our users are using our app that way. The locations that they add to their lists or forecasts is where they've been, and they keep that list. And we had an error and a bug where they had to delete it at one point. There was a subset of users, and they said, "I lost my travel history because all of those places are lost."
I mean, the nostalgia economy is something that's really coming up more and more. So yeah, we really went in on that.
Cool. All right. One last question around app design. Mark, you guys, I mean, you have probably the oldest legacy business here, I would guess, right? So you've seen all gamut of user types, all types of apps, mobile, web, et cetera. But you undertook a big change. So tell us a few of the key pieces that you did to help make sure that these people who are so actively using your app kept using it and didn't switch to maybe something like a MoviePass.
Sure. About 18 months ago, we redesigned both our website and our app platform. And I guess I'll start by backing into one little thing we didn't do very well in this project was to do a complete audit of the legacy app of what exactly the power users liked. And it turns out, we consulted experts on, proper UX for the new app and best in breed technology stack and everything. And tested the gross mechanics with users or with participants before the release. But you know, when we released the new app, we found out quickly that we left a couple of what we thought were smaller features out and had to quickly respond and kind of jam those back in. So, yeah.
So what I've heard across the board basically is doing redesigns and revamps are important, but it seems like, I'm going to say it, all y'all missed on your power users, which is interesting, right? The ones that really are your core base, your most engaged, your most vital users. When you did the redesign, you did it for someone else, not with them in mind.
Right, experts are not a substitute for users.
Consultants, right? Let's get in some consultants. Consultants are never wrong. Either they do an amazing job and they take all the credit, or something goes wrong and they say, yeah, well, your app's effed anyway, so it's not my fault. So keeping that in mind, what do you guys think you could do differently to address your power users? Because I think that's probably the most pertinent to everyone in this room, right? And this is also kind of an interesting takeaway, is we often neglect the people that matter the most because they use so much, right? We're always trying to get new users. We're always trying to convert non-spending users or non-active users into engaged users. And we start to take for granted that guy who's been with you the whole time, the guy who's never asked you questions, never bothers you, so you don't think to ask him, what do you really want? So what are a couple steps that the people in the room here should focus on to make sure they don't have a 20% reduction in retention just because you tried to make a better app? You were doing the right thing, right? You were trying to stay ahead of the game. You're trying to keep older brands refreshed and hot and new, but you neglected the people that ultimately matter the most. What's a couple things you think you could do differently this time?
We're doing three things. So one, we look at the reviews and feedback that we get, or people who write into us because they're super motivated and they obviously care. So keeping an eye on the themes that are coming out. We introduced a new feature that was trying to engage users by recirculating them to another article, so they'd get to 70% of the article and we'd pop up a little suggested next article, which did really well on web, and people didn't like it because they're already engaged, they're already motivated, don't take up my screen. So just like seeing that feedback. The second thing is it's called the Insider Group, and it's a panel of X hundred people who we kind of send surveys to, engage, we might do an event for, so kind of having a relationship with our customers. And then the third thing is just making sure that we have tracking pixels and everything. So I think everyone's familiar, like the trade-off between performance and speed and being able to do more stuff in the app. So we have like a swipe to get to the next article or the next vertical page, but that actually slows the app down quite a lot. So in the redesign, which we're planning and haven't embarked on yet, we're in the design process, we really want to get rid of that so that the app is faster, but if our power users are using that, that's going to be a huge change to their
So it's like community management. Like back in the day, a few of us have been in this for a while now, but like 5 years ago, if this was the same panel, it would be all gaming, just be all games. And community management's super important in gaming, right? You have to really engage with your power users, but for some reason, and this is not just the panel members here, non-gaming apps don't really try to create a community, right? And most of these games, they have lasting power because you create these amazing community environments and community feels. So it sounds like what would be worthwhile is almost creating a gamified community for these apps.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's media in general. Like, we've come from TV and newspapers where it's just one way, and something happened, it got reported on, you just heard it, and maybe you talked about it with people at home. And now with social and people being able to comment and bloggers being able to write their own news, it's much more dynamic and two-way, so.
Yeah, and kind of just to piggy off that, I'm not a professional marketer, but I think like kind of one of the core things to keep in mind also is know what makes your customers happy and then act like you care about them, right? So, I mean, a lot, like it sounds very simple, but I feel like a lot of companies don't have, or like, hey, we know what's better for you, right? I think one of the biggest examples of this recently was the Snapchat redesign, right? They made a lot of people angry with that, and they didn't listen to their customers. They changed things wholesale, and they received a ton of backlash. And you see they've taken steps, they've realized that they were wrong, and have tried to make the interface better than their initial redesign. So.
That's fair.
Yeah, even after, so post-upgrade, let's say you're already pissed off your customers, so at least try and find out, okay, what did they like the most? Try and introduce those features as soon as possible. And first and foremost, try and reach your power customers before you go into the upgrade. Try on as many channels as possible. Yeah, email is one of them, although not all of them will be subscribed to your emails. So try and find as many channels of communication as possible. And also post-upgrade, try and offer as many feedback channels that would keep the negative reviews offline as much as possible.
Sounds like we need to create communities in our apps now.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Write that down, everybody. Okay, so we spent a little bit of time now on app design. It's important for retention, it's important for engagement, but let's talk a bit more about most of the people here have huge audiences already, right? So obviously we're still working towards getting new users, but it's about what do you do with your existing users right now. So we got a few examples as we were talking about this on our calls about what different people are doing to engage with this existing base. And again, it circles all back. You might notice a continuity of flow here about engaging with the users that you already have and engaging with the users that matter. So let's talk about a few different things there. Specifically, Mark and Avnish, you guys do a lot of location-based push. Trish would like to do more location-based push, but people are relying on those pushes for like emergencies and real energy or real like weather things that they have to be abreast of, and so you can't really hit them that way. So let's talk a little bit about location-based engagement. Why don't we kick it off with Avnish, and then we can split it over to Mark, and then whoever wants to jump in. I don't want you to feel like it's one by one.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously Foursquare, we're a location intelligence company, so location is the core of what we do. Engagement via push notifications are almost always triggered by location. So in the Swarm app in particular, we try and help remind you when you want to check in. If I just walked into this hotel and I get a ping saying, hey, are you at this hotel, do you want to check in, or this bar, or this restaurant, like that's a very high accuracy ping to get, and it's going to be much more likely to engage me. On the Foursquare app, not that I run it, but the other app that we have, we try and send recommendations. So as soon as you walk into a restaurant, we tell you exactly what food to get. And we know that because you're at that place. We see very high, click-through rates and app sessions right after that ping gets sent. And we know that users trust us because we're able to deliver relevant or contextually relevant information to them at the right time.
Yeah, we experiment a lot with location-based push notifications. We have a pretty advanced BI program, so we'll look at things like if you purchase a ticket in the app and we know you're going to a theater, that some of our theaters actually have concessions that you can pre-order and be delivered to your seat. So we have a lot of logic built in to say, okay, if we purchase a ticket and we know you're going to a theater with these services, and we know you haven't used the concession pre-order services, and then we sense that you are actually on site or near that theater, we will push you an offer and experiment with what that incentive has to be, whether it's a free popcorn or a discount or just a reminder that, hey, did you know you could have food delivered to your seat?
Let's piggyback on a prior panel that they were talking about, 180K if you did nothing, and then 240K if you spend a bunch of money on it, right? How many people do you think are spending more than what they already would because of this activity, and is that ROI positive for you, considering that most people, when they go to the movie theaters, they want to buy something. I mean, that's how you guys really make the cash, right? So are you seeing a substantive increase in spending and engagement by doing those types of correlative marketing pushes?
I mean, I can't quantify it publicly, but absolutely.
So that's a lot. Okay, so read between the lines. Okay, cool. So I mean, in the scope of things, right, there are so many apps out right now, and attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. And sorry, I got distracted. I have the attention span of a hummingbird, right? Everyone nowadays, we are flooded with activities and flooded with content. What happens when someone leaves your app? What do? Right? Let's say they used to be a power user. The app design didn't go very well, and they're like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I'm not gonna engage. Let's talk a little bit about that, right? Because we've been focusing on current users, existing users. What happens when someone leaves? how do you make them an engaged user, right? They have so much value, and bringing in an existing user or someone who's lapsed is going to be significantly cheaper than a brand new user, right? That's just a generally accepted business principle across everything. It's generally 10 times more expensive to get a brand new user versus re-engaging an existing user. So let's touch on that a bit. You look like you want to say something, and I'm just going to postpone it. I want the anticipation to build. The audience needs to feel that excitement that you have. Okay, go.
Okay, so yeah, we see quite high engagement rates targeting lapsed subscribers because we're targeting them based on what their past purchases were and also based on the time spent since they had a last purchase. So for example, subscribers to, let's say, Vogue magazine that have lapsed maybe 6 months ago, we target them with a high discount on a subscription to Vogue, and obviously they would react immediately and
obviously, I mean,
jump on the offer.
Okay, so you hit on something that I wanted to touch on that I think is going to be relevant for most of the audience here is cohort logic, right? You all know cohorts. It's like definitely a buzzword right now. It's super important. So I want to work through some of these questions here and understanding what is the cohort logic that each of us use. Like Avnish, for example, primarily 3 to 5 year old lapse users. For a lot of the apps out here, you guys have probably completely forgotten about those. Some of you probably don't even have users that are that old to begin with, right? Whereas for you, it's 6 months, right? David, Adjust has recently built a custom audience builder.
Yes.
Right? So from your perspective, high level across multiple partners, you're seeing a ton of different logics used.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing for a couple generic specific examples, and then we can use the audience members for their hyper specific?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think what you want as far as cohort really depends on the type of app that you're having, right? If you are on a gaming vertical, something like that, you want your users engaged daily, right? Like 3 days, 4 days might be too long. Like they might be elapsed at that point. You know, they've moved on to a new game. Whereas let's say a hotel type company, obviously someone's not going to book a hotel every night of the week. So maybe you look a little bit longer, 2-3 months. So I think in terms of what your cohort and what a lapsed user should count as really depends on what kind of app that you have, and then how often you really want users to be in there. I think in an e-commerce platform, something like that, shopping, obviously people are not going to be in there every day generally, but I mean, I think once like a month, 30 days would be considered a good lapse time and a cohort.
So a lot of people can do cohorting on their own and they ship it over to you. Why would someone come to you guys to use the product versus just trying to create it on their own?
Well, I mean, you could definitely do a lot of cohort analysis on your own, but I think one of the main benefits to using Adjust is beyond just cohorting. There was a lot of talk about segmentation and kind of retargeting users. When you have a single central location where you are holding all of your data, those audiences that Mark was talking about, users that have maybe bought movie tickets but haven't bought concessions at the stand, you can find those users and target them and bring them back. So it's actually a whole suite of different products beyond just cohorts that we offer. But I think in terms of just cohorting, it is very valuable to have all of your cohort data in one place and then have it in an easy to view manner with all the different KPIs that you select out.
Sounds like a win. I mean, sign me up. Let's work down the audience. Let's work down the room. So I have an idea for you. I want to come back to you last. So let's start down here. What's the most ideal cohort for you? What is the most valuable cohort you have? Share it with the audience.
So as I was talking about before, the story of the product has changed over time. We've been around for 8-9 years, but Foursquare in 2011 is very different than Foursquare and Swarm are now. And as we're starting to look at a new story of what we call life logging, we're starting to say, hey, all of these users were using this product back in 2011 in a very different way. But some of the data that they were generating can actually be very relevant right now. They just never saw it in that light. And so we're going as far back as 5, 6, 6, 7 years to try and get a lot of these users back. And we'd been sending lapsed user emails in the past, and it's like, hey, please come back. Like, that's not that effective. Once we start to tie some of the data that they were generating 5, 6, 7 years ago into something that's relevant for them today, we were seeing rates 24 times as effective as what we were seeing before. So trying to really tailor something custom to them, that's right.
And I'm assuming a lot of those users weren't mobile users to begin with.
They were always mobile users.
Always mobile users.
Always mobile users.
Wow.
Yep.
Ahead of the game.
Yep.
Trish, please.
So our best users are the ones that are using features that they can't get on their light widgets. So they're using our Minutecast, our minute-by-minute forecast, they're using our radar products, and they've turned location on so that we can give them those life-saving tornado warnings and other severe weather information. So it's targeting those people with ads and creatives that really highlight the difference between that light product that you may have just been given. It's more than just a current temperature and a little icon that you got to figure out what that weather is. We give that deeper, more information. So it's the people that figure that out and use those products are our highest value.
So you, as opposed to like a fully lapsed or maybe a very, very low engaged user, someone who's never engaged, you retarget your engaged users because they've already opted in, right? They've already told you, hey, I'm super into this app.
Yeah.
So now you go after them to really get max value.
Right.
So you're focusing on power users. So look at that, full circle.
Yeah,
It's so
explaining
good.
the value of those other benefits as well. But we do some simple lapsed user messaging as well.
Of course.
30, 60, 90. We also found some really interesting information around retention around when we acquire the user because of our seasonality. I mean, everyone has got seasonality, but we really have seasonality.
Like actual seasons
like actual
of weather.
seasons. And this February might have been different than last February because of 3 snowstorms versus this February being really quiet. So it's also really interesting to look at how we've acquired the user and how that user has behaved over time. It's really interesting that we acquire a user in May, that we tend to keep them, their 90-day retention could be 56%, whereas we acquire a user in February, it's like 12. So you're really trying to figure out how to engage that 12% with a different call to action in different seasons to remind them why they got the app.
So it's like I signed up in February because I wanted to check ski reports.
Because there was
and
some
then
big
you're
snowstorm,
you're gonna come back to me in December. Hey, winter's coming around the corner. Make sure you're logged back in.
Yep.
That makes sense. Write that down.
Yeah, so we have a 3-tier loyalty program, and if we can get somebody to commit at the lowest level, which is a free program, and then ease them into the next paid program, those become some of our most successful guests because we're showing them the value and they become evangelists and tell their friends and help us out a lot.
That's a really important factor. Again, like the idea of community and power user, it's creating evangelization within your community and your users, right? The best business deal is through referrals. I think everyone in the room would agree with that. So the best user for you is, hey, Jack, come check out this app. I've been using it all the time. I love the way AMC sets it up. They give me all the info I want on my movies. I'm watching trailers, etc. Like, you got to go check it out. And then you get another engaged user.
Just obsess over them. And
Perfect. Okay.
So in our case, our power users are basically users that have multiple subscriptions. The challenge with that is the fact that they would obviously come to our app once a month, once the next issue is available. So it's difficult to engage them with in-app messaging. So what works best for us are push notifications, and this way we get them to come back to the app and check out and also our email program targeting the lapsed subscribers, like the example I mentioned before. For Vogue, nothing.
Just a plug for Vogue.
Yeah,
she doesn't work for Vogue, but she's obviously into it. What about pushing people to other to other publications? Are you finding that people generally stick with what they like?
Yeah, so we're trying to not only upsell them get them to resubscribe again, but also to check out other publications which are within the same category of the titles they're already subscribed to.
How many people do you see who are, like, let's say again, to stick to Vogue, are core Vogue readers? How many of those usually do you see converting over to other publications, especially when they finish that most recent article or that most recent monthly?
Yeah, I really need an NDA right now, so that's
just ballpark it. Let's give us a range.
And then
more
tomorrow,
than 10, less than 75. How's that? I'm talking about actionable data here. It's a safe room. We're all peers here. And I don't think anyone else has a similar app, so I think you're okay. Yeah, you guys kind of have it locked down pretty well. Now, Trish, Zoe, I wanted to come back to what you had said about, as people are reading the articles, Once they're about 70% done, you suggest something to them, right? Which is something that I talked about like 3 or 4 years ago about ad monetization specifically, and it was around the idea of gaming, and if you know most of your players play for like 14 days, then on the 13th day, maybe you show them an ad, right? You try to keep minimal ads, but you start showing them ads because they have a high likelihood of churning at that point, right? So it's like, hey, you're already gonna churn, so why don't I get a little bit of ad revenue from you, right? You have a low likelihood of spending at this point. I'll throw an ad at you, so now you're getting incremental gain on someone who's already on their way out. So I really like the idea of what you mentioned about, okay, you're 70% done, I'm going to show you something else, because again, are you going to read another article? Probably not. You're probably already done. So you said some of the power users were not happy about it, but again, as much as we're talking about power users, there are millions of other non-power users who are also equally important. So what are you seeing when you're doing something like that, when you're trying to retarget or re-engage someone who's not totally done, who hasn't even lapsed at all? All right, they're pre-lapse.
So interesting, we actually have been talking about doing that, where you identify if someone's going to be a one and done, and you're not going to get them to read something else, we should at least get a page impression, ad impression out of you.
Get a little money out of them.
Yeah, or maybe they watch a video and we give them a video in that research because they're likely to continue engaging, or another article, or if it's relevant sponsored content, because the CPMs are higher on that. So yeah, totally agree. I think targeting is all about getting the results the most effective way you can, because otherwise you just carpet bomb everyone, you get the same result, but you're not going to, why spend all of that opportunity on something, on one thing?
Well, that's why we're all up here, right, is how do we do it effectively and not just, because I mean, you all could just set push to every single user, you could set a retargeting campaign to every single user, but that's a waste of money. We're all performance marketers, right? We're not branding marketers. Okay, so the idea then that what you're saying is, it's about, for each of you, understanding your user base. And we've had a couple other panels where they say you got to understand your data and know who the right person is to go after. But again, it's hyper-specific to each of you. And I think what's interesting is that you've all tested different things, right? A lot of people in the room say, I'm open to testing, right? As someone on the ad side is like, yeah, we'll do a test, right? Everyone loves the idea of a test. But some of us get very stuck in our ways. So what I hope from these discussions here is maybe it gives you just something to try new, right? Something different that maybe you haven't thought about doing before, or maybe you did, but now you have 7 industry experts, well, you have 6 industry experts and a guy they let talk, tell you some new ideas. So that's the real takeaway here, is don't just assume that you know your user base. Don't just assume that your power users are going to keep coming back. Don't just assume that people are going to keep reading or people are going to do word of mouth. It's about combining all those pieces and really understanding that user flow and not just accepting it, right? Again, I really like the idea of doing almost pre-targeting, retargeting. That for me is something I've been talking about for a long time, but no one really listened, so. Okay, so we're getting down close to time. They already gave us extra time. I negotiated that up front. I said with this many people, we're going over. So our clock already had extra time, and then we're probably going to still go past it. I wanted to touch on something that's particularly important to me. I've been kind of spearheading something here at Aplift about, we're calling it basically pre-targeting, but the idea is a lot of these companies, especially someone like AMC, right, or Foursquare Storm, you have users from ages ago. And a lot of companies have their online users, they have in-store users, right, but they want to get them on mobile. Right, and there's a ton of strategies. Getting installs is easy, whatever. But everyone who has spoken is talking about getting the right users. So we started doing something with taking all of the old data, things that you might not have even thought about, emails, website cookies, in-store visits, surveys, all sorts of random things like that, and specifically creating cohorts to then go target those users. Right, so you're not just doing retargeting, you're not just doing scattershot UA, you are specifically running targeted campaigns for the users that are online, never converted, went in the store, never converted, all those different pieces there. So I want to talk a little bit about that, specifically Trish and Mark having older brands coming from online, TV, non-traditional mobile. What are some things that you're doing to convert those users into mobile users?
I think one of our biggest properties is our mobile web. Our mobile web far exceeds our app users, and that's because of our OEM partnerships that have been going back years with handset manufacturers where their light widgets go to our mobile website. So trying to capture those mobile web users that may not even realize they were using AccuWeather, but they were because they were just forced there through an experience. I mean, honestly, we're doing just like when they're there, giving them a reason, giving them a creative. It's friction, basically, but to tell them why our app has those features, like I talked about, what the power users use, the radar features, the minute-by-minute forecast, and the push notifications that they can't get on those light experiences. So trying different creatives with that, whether it's a small banner message to try to, we haven't done any force, you have to go to the app and you can't use this mobile website anymore. We haven't gotten there yet, but trying to convert them and show them the value a little at a time in that multi-touch.
Radical.
Yeah, similar. I mean, some of our tactics are as lo-fi as literally signage in the theaters. Hey, you know, stick a couple App Store icons on something to remind people, oh yeah, there might be an app out there. So we do stuff like that. Similar, we have a large mobile web user base. If they make a transaction on mobile web, the email receipt actually has an ad for the app itself and links to the app store. So we kind of chip away at it, but ultimately we want to move everyone up and into the app. It's the best experience.
I mean, long-term mobile users, I mean, we know that now it's like 50% of all consumption happens on mobile now, and that's only going to increase, right? As it just becomes better and stronger, faster, it's going to get that way. So now, I mean, we keep saying it's a year of mobile, but like legitimately we're at that point where mobile users are going to be your most valuable users long time. So I think that that's something just food for thought for the audience is, how are we going to get online information into usable mobile users, right? So think about that. We can talk about it after if you want to come find me.
I think something to think about too is how you're going to take that user and bring them into the mobile app. You got to make that experience as seamless and easy as possible. I mean, I think I've seen a lot of users use deferred deep links in a sense like you deliver a creative about some part of your app that they want to see, and then they could, by clicking on that creative, they could get sent to the App Store, they could download the app, and then once they open the app, get sent directly to that page. Like for movies, you could do like, I don't know, Deadpool 2 or something like that, and then you could get directly sent to the actual movie page within the app. So the experience from converting that user from the mobile web to in-app experience can be just made that much less difficult.
And you could help with that, right?
Absolutely.
Adjust could help with that? Keep that in mind. Okay. We're now 2 minutes over, and I don't really care. So they'll have to pull me off, and James isn't even nearby, so it must be fine. Let's just do a couple like just wrap up things, right? I hate cliches and I hate buzzwords, but I want buzzwords. What are your 2018 buzzwords? Please, let's work down. Start us off, Avnish.
Push notification responsibility.
Deep.
I like that.
All right. Trish, what about you? What's your buzzword? What's your 2018
Can I
buzzword?
steal that one?
No, you may not.
I think it's responsible push notifications.
But it makes so much sense for you.
Responsible location data usage.
Because like for you, we
Yeah.
talked about, like you can't just be sending push because I'm thinking there's going to be a hurricane coming,
Right.
and you're like, hey, check out our new app.
The amount of feedback, negative feedback we got when our app sent out an Amber Alert, people wrote in hate because they wanted weather alerts from us, not missing child alerts.
Yeah.
What kind
Come
of
on,
person
I don't have
does that?
time for missing child. It's a really nice day out.
It makes us really, really worried about what types of push we're doing.
It makes me worried about people in general when I hear that.
It does.
But don't lie, you've all gotten an Amber Alert and been like, how do I turn this off? Just admit it. Admit it.
I think it's right message, right time.
Right message, right time?
Yeah.
Okay. Varela?
A combination of both, please.
No, you may not do that.
Just one.
No cop-outs here.
I would say user first.
User first.
Yep.
I like that. That's a good buzzword. It's a very good one. So,
Rich notifications, so not just like, you know, being able to customize and people can pick what kind of notifications they want, because I don't care about sports, but a lot of people do.
Why are you pointing at me? You're just assuming
I'm
into
pointing
sports.
at the
I mean, I
audience.
am, but you definitely directed it towards me. That's profiling.
Having like your phone shake when the notification comes through, so you notice it, but it's not too intrusive. All of those kind of playing with those levers.
I would go with machine learning and like dynamic ads. I feel like those are buzzwords at the very least.
Yeah, machine learning is about the most buzzword. You should have just said algorithm.
I was thinking of machine learning and algorithm.
AI.
Yeah. So we'll see how all that plays out.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've got one other little tip kind of on
Yeah,
that that I
Go
forgot
for
about.
it. We can take it all the time we want.
You know,
You guys got nowhere to be.
James isn't here.
Yeah, James isn't even here. Just freestyling now.
You know, one thing, don't forget to talk to your devs. Like,
Yes.
these guys are in the code
Yes.
all day. There are things you can do in the app with, you know, even nuances of native Android, native iOS that can be featureized that most people don't even know about. So I spend a lot of time with my devs saying, if you come across anything new yet or you want to experiment, and a couple of them have really great appetites for R&D. And like, you want a Friday afternoon project, how would I do something like this?
That's a great idea.
So
Like,
that
it's your
comes,
developer community.
yeah, like surprise and delight your guests with a shiny object every couple releases is a great
I love
thing.
a good bobble. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. We've covered a lot. Oh, there's James right there. He's wearing all black. He looked like he was in the chair. I couldn't see. So we're done now, except maybe one or two questions. We've covered a lot of topics. Let's just drag it out as long as we possibly can. We'll do questions after. Find us afterwards. Again, thank you all to our panelists. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for the time here.